Well, a lot of interesting stuff happening all around the world. And of course, it's anything goes summer. But Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany, waded into the Brexit debate in the UK. And I just find this whole phenomena fascinating. And the reason I find it fascinating is because there are echoes of analogies to this here in the United States. Probably the biggest one is NAFTA. But, you know, TTIP, TPP, South Korea free trade deal, Colombia free trade deal. I mean, you name it, right? But there are some very, very real differences. So just to define terms, first of all, in Europe, there are two things, right? There's the European Union and there's the Eurozone. The European Union is a group of countries that have gotten together and said, we are, essentially, we are going to function as a federal republic for all practical purposes. In other words, there's no longer borders between our countries. There's no longer tariffs or duties between our countries. We will collectively negotiate with other countries for our trade deals and trade agreements and things like that. So that's the European Union. And one of the things that it has meant, just like to take it right down to where the rubber meets the road for the average person living in Europe, is that if you are living in one of the high-wage countries, say Germany, Sweden, France, Norway, England, the United Kingdom, then and you're earning a good living, say, you know, in the trades, for example. Say you're an electrician and you're making, you know, a good living, whatever that might be in the UK. Now, somebody who has the same skill and training as you, but grew up in, say, Poland, part of the European Union, I believe. I should have started this list of EU countries. I had to get that. But in any case, one of the poorer, you know, Romania, for example, one of the poorer European Union countries, then, you know, you can move to the UK and compete for that really good paying job for the person in England. And this, in the high wage countries, has the effect of depressing wages, which is, you know, it's basically unlimited immigration. It would be the equivalent of the United States, Canada, and Mexico saying with NAFTA, we're going to, by the way, while we're all going to do away with tariffs between each other, we're also going to do away with borders. And so anybody in Mexico who wants to come to the United States or Canada and get a job at whatever, you know, people are willing to pay you, go for it. Now, when this whole thing started, and this was, you know, decades ago, I remember the Polish plumber ad to keep the, well, this was largely to keep the EU out of the Eurozone, which is the second piece of it. But you know, the gist of the ad was, you know, this guy from Poland comes to England and takes the job of a British plumber, basically, because he'll work for less money. And now the Eurozone is within the European Union. It doesn't include all the EU countries. It's a smaller number of countries. But it's all the countries that have agreed to give up their own economic sovereignty altogether and comply with a list of rules and the use of a single currency, the euro, and live with a group of rules like, for example, you can never run a budget deficit greater than 3% of your GDP. If you do, you must either raise taxes or cut spending or both. And raising taxes is deeply frowned upon. This is all very neoliberal, right? This is just a shade away from kind of Reaganomics in some ways. And, you know, there's this vote coming up, this Brexit vote, the British exit from, now, they never did join the Eurozone. The campaign to prevent England, the United Kingdom, from joining the Eurozone was quite successful. And so England still has the pound. So, for example, you know, when a recession happens, typically that is when countries do deficit spending. Deficit spending is considered a good thing by most economists during a recession or a depression because, you know, it injects money at the bottom, you know, things like infrastructure and whatnot, which creates aggregate demand, you know, demand for goods and services, which in turn increases standard of living. Right? It increases economic activity. So what happened to Greece and Portugal and Italy and Spain when the whole world slid into recession because bankers in the United States, the UK, and Germany principally, and some in Hong Kong, but we were the main ones, and the United States was 70% of it at least. England maybe 20%. Deutsche Bank was not; their hands were not clean either. Decided to rob us of about $14 trillion, commit multiple felonies, knowing that they had bought off enough politicians from basically the entire Democratic and Republican Party in the United States to, you know, both the Conservatives and Labour in the UK, or some of Labour, that, you know, they could just, like, get away with it. So during the recession, the government, you know, should you know, be spending more than 3% of GDP to re-stimulate the economy. And then as people go back to work, they start paying taxes, the tax base comes back up, and your deficit goes down. This is what Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower did after World War II. We had this huge debt coming out of World War II. It was 129% of GDP. Now, keep in mind, in Europe, you can't go beyond 3% if you're in the Eurozone. We were at 129% of GDP. We're roughly at 100% now. And how did Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower pay it off? More borrowing and spending. Build the international or the interstate highway system. Do the GI Bill. Put people to work. Send people to school. Massive infrastructure projects. By putting people to work, it created salaries and, you know, all that kind of. So it's like, in my opinion, the economics of the Eurozone are screwed. But the European Union, it's interesting, this whole thing of, you know, exiting from the European Union is positioned as a right-wing thing. And yeah, the right-wing parties in England and in the United Kingdom are gung-ho to separate from the European Union because they don't want immigrants coming into their country, particularly immigrants who might have darker skin than WASPs, right, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. But I think that there is probably a more nationalist but less toxic case to be made for a Brexit, which is, and just, you know, talking to Americans, would you want there to be no border between the United States and Mexico? I mean, that's the position of the libertarians, right, is that there should be no borders. Employers in the United States should be able to hire Mexicans and have them come to the United States. This is libertarian.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And it's also how the European Union works. So anyhow, yeah, I'm curious your thoughts, and those of you who may know a lot about this, feel free to call in.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.